The emergency beacon from Kepler 442b reached the Galactic Council at 0600 Standard Time. By 0630, the chamber was full of representatives from 12 member species, all talking at once. Councillor Zaltier watched the chaos from his seat and felt his throat sacs tighten with familiar frustration. The mining colony was dying. 3,000 beings needed help, and everyone was arguing about whose problem it was. "The colony is registered under Vorian Charter," said Representative Kess, her scales flashing orange with agitation. "But the majority population is Talgrim. Surely this falls under Talgrim jurisdiction." "Our nearest response team is 8 days away," the Talgrim ambassador rumbled. "The Nexus Alliance has a carrier group only 5 days out. They should respond." "Absolutely not," snapped the Nexus representative. "We have no legal standing in that sector. Our insurance won't cover it. The liability alone, the life support systems are failing." Zaltier interrupted, his voice cutting through the noise. "We've been talking for half an hour. Does anyone have a ship that can reach them in time?" Silence fell over the chamber. Representatives looked at each other. They checked their data pads. They consulted with aides. "The Corvian medical frigate is 3.5 days away," someone offered. "Can they handle a full colony evacuation?" "Well, no, but they could stabilize. Who authorizes them to enter that sector?" "We'd need clearance from at least 3 oversight committees. How long does that take?" 4 to 6 days, if we expedite." Zaltier felt something cold settle in his chest. They were going to talk until everyone died. He'd seen it happen before. Not often, but enough. The system worked for most things, but sometimes the cracks were too wide and people fell through. The debate continued. Legal frameworks, insurance protocols, chain of command disputes. The Galactic Council had spent 2,000 years building a system where everyone knew their role, where nothing happened without proper authorization. It prevented chaos. It prevented wars. It meant that when disaster struck, there was a clear, orderly response, except when there wasn't. "We could submit an emergency request to the sector authority," suggested one representative. "They have the power to deputize any available vessel. That would take at least 2 days. The colony doesn't have 2 days." More silence. More checking of data pads. Zaltier pulled up the distress signal on his own screen. The message was simple and desperate. "Reactor failure. Life support critical. Please help." The timestamp showed it was already 3 hours old. His console beeped. New data was flowing in. A ship had responded to the distress call. Zaltier frowned and pulled up the details. It was a human freighter. The Wayward Sun, registered out of Earth's commercial fleet. Current cargo: mining equipment and prefab housing units. Crew complement: 24. Captain: Marcus Chen. And according to the navigation data, the ship had already changed course. It was burning hard toward Kepler 442b. Zaltier stood up. A human ship is responding to the distress call. Every head in the chamber turned toward him. "That's impossible," said Representative Kess. "Humans aren't part of this sector's response network. They don't have authorization." Nevertheless, the Wayward Sun altered course 37 minutes ago. "They'll reach the colony in approximately 3 days and 4 hours. Who authorized this?" demanded the Nexus representative. Zaltier checked his data. "No one. The captain appears to have simply decided to go." The chamber erupted. This was unprecedented. This was irregular. This was a violation of at least 17 protocols. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 40 standard years ago, and they were still learning how things worked. Clearly, they needed another lesson in proper procedure. "Someone contact that ship immediately," ordered the council mediator. "Inform them they do not have clearance to operate in that sector." Instruct them to return to their original course. Zaltier watched as the communications officer sent the message. They waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. The response came through. Zaltier read it first, and his throat sacs went completely flat. What does it say? Asked the mediator. The captain says, message received. Continuing to Kepler 442b. Will reassess after people are safe. Chun out. Reassess? They can't just... There's more, Zaltier said quietly. He's posted the distress call on human communication networks. Something called social media. He's asking if any other human ships in the region can assist. Stop him. That's not proper channels. That's 3 more human vessels have already changed course, Zaltier reported, watching the navigation data update in real time. A transport ship, a medical vessel, and... He paused, reading the classification. A private yacht. A yacht? Someone sputtered. What does a yacht owner think they're going to do? Zaltier didn't answer. He was watching something he'd never seen before. 4 human ships, none of them authorized, none of them official, all converging on a disaster while the Galactic Council was still arguing about who should fill out the paperwork. The debate raged for another 2 hours. Legal experts were consulted. Precedents were reviewed. Strongly worded messages were sent to the human vessels, all of which were politely ignored by the time the council agreed on a response, plan pending final approval from the sector authority, which would take another day. The wayward sun was already halfway to Kepler-442b.xal, single quotes tier, pulled up Captain Chen's file. Human male, age 42, 20 years of commercial shipping experience. No military service. No official rescue training. Nothing in his record suggested he was anything special. But he was moving while everyone else was talking. And Zaltier realized, with a feeling like ice water in his veins, that this was what made humans dangerous. The system had failed. The proper authorities were paralyzed. And the humans had simply looked at the situation and decided someone needed to do something. So they did. No authorization. No clearance. No waiting for someone else to take responsibility. The Galactic Council had spent millennia perfecting a system where everyone had a role. The humans were proving that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was simply ignore the system and act. Zaltier watched the navigation tracks converge on the dying colony and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Fear. Captain Marcus. Chum stared at the screen showing Kepler 442b and knew they were in trouble. The colony was worse than the distress call had indicated. Much worse. Sophia, tell me something good, he said to his chief engineer. Sophia Reeves looked up from her console, and her expression told him everything. And everything? The reactor's approaching meltdown. The automated safety systems locked down the habitation dome to contain radiation, which means 3,000 people are trapped inside with failing life support. Can we get them out? Not with what we've got. We'd need industrial cutting equipment, and even then, she paused. Wait, we're carrying prefab housing units. Those have emergency airlocks. Can you make it work? Sophia's fingers flew across her console. Give me 2 hours and I can cobble something together. It'll violate about 40 safety regulations, but it'll work. Probably. 90% sure. Good enough. Do it. Chun switched channels. Dr. Wu, how many people can we fit in the cargo bay? The ship's medic responded immediately. If we stack them like cargo, maybe 500. If we want them to survive, 200 maximum. We're evacuating 3,000. Silence on the channel. Then I'll prep the bay, and the hallways, and my quarters. We'll make it work. That was the thing about his crew, Chun thought. Nobody asked if it was possible. Nobody said it wasn't their job. They just figured out how to do it. The other human ships were still hours away. The medical vessel would help, but they needed to start now. The colony had maybe 6 hours of life support left, and that was optimistic. "Captain," his pilot Yuki Tanaka called out. "The Galactic Council is hailing us again. 15th time. What are they saying?" "Same thing. We don't have authorization. We need to stand down. Wait for the proper authorities." Chun looked at the screen showing the colony. He could see the heat signatures of thousands of people huddled in the habitation dome. He thought about his daughter, safe on Earth. He thought about how he'd want someone to help her if she was trapped, and dying while bureaucrats argued about paperwork. "Tell them we're experiencing communication difficulties," he said. I grinned. "Communication difficulties. Copy that, Captain." 3 hours later, the Wayward Sun achieved orbit around Kepler 442b. Sophia had turned their cargo of prefab airlocks into what she called a really terrible but functional breaching system. Dr. Wu had converted every available space into emergency medical stations. The crew had strapped themselves into emergency suits and were ready to move. Chun opened a channel to the colony. "This is Captain Marcus Chun of the Wayward Sun. We're here to get you out. Start gathering everyone near the main airlock." The response was weak and filled with static. "This is Colony Administrator Vex. The automated systems won't let us near the airlocks. Radiation protocols. We're going to cut through the dome wall. Take a spot away from the reactor. Get everyone back and hold on." "You're going to cut through the hull? That's insane. The pressure differential alone will make it work." Chun out. It took 2 attempts. The first breach failed when the emergency airlock didn't seal properly. Sophia cursed in 3 languages, recalibrated, and tried again. The second time, it held barely. Chun led the first team through. The inside of the dome was hot and the air tasted wrong. People were gathered in groups, some unconscious, many injured. He saw Calgrim, Vorians, Nexians, even a few humans. All of them looked at him like he was crazy. "We're getting everyone out," he announced. "Form lines. Families stay together. Medical emergencies first. Move quickly, but don't panic. Who authorized this rescue?" Administrator Vex demanded. He was a Vorian, his throat sacs fluttering with agitation. "Nobody," Chun said. "Let's go." The evacuation was chaos. There was no other word for it. People stumbled through the makeshift airlock, were grabbed by crew members, and were hustled into every available space on the Wayward Sun. Dr. Wu and his 2 medical assistants worked without stopping, triaging injuries, distributing oxygen, keeping people alive. The cargo bay filled up. Then the hallways. Then the crew quarters. Then the mess hall. People were packed in so tight they could barely move. "Captain, we're at 300, Yuki reported. "We can't fit any more." "The medical ship is 20 minutes out," Sophia added. "And that yacht should be here in 40. "Keep loading people," Chun ordered. "We'll make room." "There's no more room." "Then we'll make some." By the time the medical vessel arrived, the Wayward Sun had taken on 437 colonists. The ship's life support was screaming warnings. The artificial gravity was failing in some sections. People were breathing recycled air that was barely adequate, but they were alive. The medical ship took another 800. The Yada, luxury vessel owned by a human billionaire who happened to be touring the sector, took 200. 2 more human cargo ships arrived and took the rest. The last shuttle left the colony 18 minutes before the reactor went critical. Chun watched from orbit as the explosion tore through the habitation dome, turning everything into expanding clouds of superheated debris. If they'd waited for authorization, everyone would be dead. Chum slumped in his captain's chair and felt the weight of exhaustion hit him. Around him, his crew looked like they'd been through a war. Sophia had burns on her hands from the emergency welding. Dr. Wu was covered in other people's blood. Yuki had been awake for 30 straight hours. "Captain," his communications officer said quietly, "the Galactic Council wants to speak with you." "Tell them, sir. They're insisting. They say you violated 17 different protocols. There's going to be an inquiry." Chun looked at the screen showing the rescued colonists packed into his ship. He saw a Talgrim father holding his child. He saw a Vorian medical worker helping an injured Nexian. He saw people who would be dead if he'd waited for permission. "Tell the council I'll be happy to talk to them," he said, "after we get these people to safety. They're demanding you respond immediately, and I'm demanding they wait until I'm done saving lives." "Chun out." He cut the channel. His crew stared at him. "Are we in trouble, Captain?" Yuki asked. Chun thought about it. They'd violated protocols, ignored direct orders from the Galactic Council, performed dangerous maneuvers without authorization, and damaged their ship possibly beyond repair. By the rules, they'd done everything wrong. By any human measure, they'd done the only thing that mattered. "Probably," he said, "but 3,000 people are alive. So I'm calling it a win." His crew nodded. No one argued. No one questioned it. And in that moment, Chun understood what made humans different. The galaxy had rules, procedures, proper channels. The galaxy had systems where everyone knew their role and nobody acted without authorization. Humans had those things too. But when the choice came down to rules or lives, humans picked lives. Every single time, even when it got them in trouble. Especially when it got them in trouble. Ambassador Lyra Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council and felt 12 pairs of alien eyes judging her. Behind her, the chamber gallery was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all waiting to hear humanity defend itself. The charges were serious. Unauthorized action. Violation of sector protocols. Disregard for proper chain of command. Captain Chun and his crew had broken rules that had stood for 2,000 years. Councilor Zaltier spoke first, his voice measured and calm. "Ambassador Vasquez, we acknowledge that the outcome of the Kepler 442b incident was positive. 3,000 lives were saved. However, we must address the concerning pattern of unilateral action by human vessels. Your species seems unable or unwilling to follow established procedures." "We follow procedures," Lyra said, "when they work. And when they don't work to your satisfaction, you simply ignore them? When they result in people dying while we debate, yes." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representative Kess leaned forward, her scales shifting to a concerned blue. "Ambassador, you must understand our perspective. The system we've built prevents chaos. It prevents conflicts over jurisdiction. It ensures that responses are coordinated and appropriate. It also ensures that sometimes no one responds at all." Lyra replied. "That's an unfair characterization," the Nexus representative interjected. "The Council was preparing a proper response. Your captain simply didn't wait for authorization." "How long would authorization have taken?" Silence. "How long?" Lyra pressed. "The sector authority would have required approximately 48 hours to review the request and issue a mandate," Zaltier said quietly. "Possibly longer." "The colony had 6 hours," Lyra said. Captain Chun saw the gap between what needed to happen and what was happening. So he acted. Without authority. Without consideration for the broader implications. With consideration for 3,000 lives. The Talgrim ambassador rumbled from his seat. "We understand human sentiment is involved here. But sentiment cannot override established law. What if Captain Chun had made the situation worse? What if his unqualified intervention had resulted in more deaths? Who would bear responsibility? He would, Lyra said simply. That's the point. Captain Chun accepted full responsibility for his actions. He knew he might fail. He knew he might be punished. He did it anyway because someone needed to. That's not how civilized society functions, Representative Kess said, though her tone was uncertain. If everyone simply acted on their own judgment, we'd have chaos. We'd have conflicts. We'd have disasters caused by well-meaning but unqualified individuals. Lyra took a breath. This was the moment. May I share something from human history? Saltier gestured his assent. In 1964, a woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked in New York City on Earth. 38 people heard her cries for help. None of them intervened. None of them even called for help. Psychologists have studied this incident and identified what they called the bystander effect. The more people present, the less likely any individual is to help. Everyone assumes someone else will do something. The chamber was quiet now, listening. It's a natural behavior, Lyra continued. It exists across almost all social species. It's a survival trait. Don't take risks when others can do it. Don't expose yourself when the group can handle it. It prevents individuals from endangering themselves unnecessarily. Then you agree this is natural behavior, the Nexus representative said. I agree it's natural, Lyra said. But humans decided it was a flaw. She pulled up a holographic display. Images flickered to life above the chamber floor. Firefighters running into burning buildings. Lifeguards diving into dangerous waters. Ordinary people pulling strangers from car wrecks. We identified this trait in ourselves and decided to fight it. We created laws protecting people who help others. We build cultural values around the idea that if you see someone in trouble, you should act. We tell stories about heroes who intervened when no one else would. We teach our children that the worst thing you can be is a bystander. That's admirable, Zaltier said, but also dangerous. Yes, Lyra agreed. It is dangerous. People die trying to help. They make mistakes. They cause problems. But we decided that was better than the alternative. She changed the display. Now it showed the Galactic Council chamber during the Kepler-4 42b crisis. 12 species, all debating. All waiting for someone else to take responsibility. You've built something impressive here, Lyra said, gesturing to the chamber. A system where everyone has a role. Where nothing happens without proper authorization. Where responsibility is clearly defined and distributed. It's elegant. It's stable. It prevents chaos. But, prompted Zaltier. But you've created a galaxy-wide bystander effect, Lyra said. You've built a system where everyone waits for someone else to act. Where taking initiative is punished. Where the proper response to a crisis is to convene a committee and debate jurisdiction. That system has kept peace for 2,000 years, Representative Kess said. But her voice was uncertain. And in that time, how many people died while you debated? Lyra asked. How many disasters fell through the cracks because no one felt responsible? How many emergencies required exactly the right authorization from exactly the right authority before anyone could help? No one answered. Lyra walked to the center of the chamber. Counselors, I'm not saying your system is wrong. For most situations, it works. It's fair, it's organized, it prevents conflicts. But humans are terrifying to you because we've spent our entire history training ourselves to override our natural instincts. She pulled up a final image. Captain Chun and his crew, exhausted and damaged, standing with the 3,000 colonists they'd saved. When we see someone in trouble and no one is helping, something in our culture screams at us to act. Not to wait for the right person. Not to check if we have authorization. Authorization. Just to move. To do something. Even if it's wrong. Even if we get punished. Because the alternative standing by while people die is worse to us than any consequence. That's chaos. Someone muttered. No, Zaltir said slowly, his throat sacs pulsing with what Lyra had learned to recognize as deep thought. It's terrifying. He stood, addressing the chamber. The ambassador is correct. We've built a system that works for normal operations. But in true emergencies, when rapid response is essential, our system fails. We wait for authorization that never comes. We debate while people die. We've optimized for order at the cost of adaptability. Are you suggesting we abandon our protocols? Representative Cass asked. I'm suggesting, Zaltir said, that perhaps the most frightening thing about humans isn't their tendency to act without authorization. It's that they've shown us a flaw we didn't know we had. Lyra watched the council members look at each other. She saw understanding dawning. Fear, too, but also something else. Respect. Double quote. So, what do we do? The Talgrim ambassador asked. How do we address this? We learn, Zaltir said. We adapt. And perhaps we acknowledge that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is nothing at all. The vote on Captain Chun's punishment was delayed pending further review. It was the closest thing to an admission of error that the Galactic Council had made in centuries. As Lyra left the chamber, Zaltir caught up with her. Your people terrify us, Ambassador, he said quietly. I know. But perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing. Lyra smiled. That's the most human thing I've ever heard you say. The asteroid swarm appeared on long-range sensors 6 months after the Kepler-442b incident. Within hours, every mathematician in the Galactic Council had confirmed the same terrible truth. The swarm was heading directly toward the Telos system. 20 billion people lived in Telos. It was one of the most densely populated systems in the galaxy, home to 5 member species and dozens of colony worlds. The asteroids would arrive in 4 standard weeks. If no one stopped them, Telos would be destroyed. Councillor Zaltir watched the emergency session with a growing sense of déjà vu. The chamber was full. Everyone agreed something must be done, and everyone was arguing about who should do it. The Telos Defense Force can't handle this alone, the Telos representative said. We need a coordinated military response. Which military? Asked the Valorian fleet commander. This requires resources from multiple sectors. We need a unified command structure. That requires approval from the Military Oversight Committee. How long does that take? Minimum 2 weeks. Possibly 3. We don't have 3 weeks, Zaltir said, his throat sacs tight with frustration. The asteroids will reach Telos in 4 weeks. We need ships moving now. We can't just send ships without proper authorization, Representative Cass protested. Who commands them? Who pays for the operation? What if there are casualties? The liability issues alone. 20 billion people are going to die, Zaltir said quietly. And we're discussing liability. The debate continued. Legal frameworks were consulted. Precedents were reviewed. Committee after committee was convened. And with every hour that passed, the asteroids got closer. On Earth, humanity watched the council proceedings with growing disbelief. Admiral Patricia Okonkwo, commander of Earth's Third Fleet, stood in the command center and felt her patience snap. She'd been watching the debate for 48 hours. 48 hours of procedure and protocol. While 20 billion people waited to die. She opened a channel to the other human fleet commanders. This is Admiral Okonkwo. What's our fastest possible response time to Telos? 17 days if we push the drives hard, replied Commander Jang of the Second Fleet. 15 if we're willing to burn out some systems. Do it. I want every combat-capable ship we have moving toward Telos within the hour. Admiral, we don't have authorization from the Galactic Council. I know. They're still debating, and while they debate, people are going to die. I'm not waiting anymore. Silence on the channel. Then, one by one, the other commanders responded. Second Fleet is with you. Fifth Fleet ready to move. This is Captain Martinez on the carrier Indomitable. We're burning for Tellus now. Within 2 hours, 47 human military vessels had changed course for Tellus. Within 4 hours, the number had grown to 93. Not just military ships either. Civilian vessels, cargo haulers, mining ships equipped with industrial equipment, even a few private yachts. All heading to Tellus, all unauthorized. When the Galactic Council found out, the chamber erupted in chaos. This is unacceptable. The Nexus representative shouted. They can't just deploy a military force without authorization. This could trigger a war. With whom? Lyra Vasquez asked calmly. The asteroids? That's not the point. The point is humans are once again acting unilaterally, without regard for proper procedure. The point, Lyra interrupted, is that while you've been talking for 2 days, my people have been moving. They'll reach Tellus in 15 days. That gives them 9 days to stop the asteroids. If you want to help, you're welcome to join them. Join them? Representative Kess looked stunned. They don't have command authority. They don't have a coordination plan. This is chaos. It's a response, Zaltir said quietly, which is more than we've managed. The Valorian fleet commander stood. I'm ordering the 3rd Valorian battle group to deploy to Telos immediately. We'll coordinate with the human forces. You can't do that without authorization. Watch me. Within hours, the fractures appeared. Species that had spent 2 days debating suddenly found themselves making decisions. Some moved. Some didn't. But the pattern was clear. Humanity had moved first, and their movement had broken the paralysis. 15 days later, the combined fleet arrived at Telos. It was the most chaotic military operation in galactic history. There was no unified command, no single strategy, no clear chain of command. The humans had brought nuclear charges and mass drivers. The Valorians had plasma cannons. A Talgrim mining consortium had shown up with industrial drilling equipment. Even a few civilian volunteers had arrived with ideas that ranged from brilliant to insane. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and surveyed the fleet with a mixture of pride and terror. This shouldn't work. By every military doctrine in the galaxy, this kind of uncoordinated response should be a disaster. But the asteroids didn't care about doctrine. All right, people, she broadcast on the open channel. We've got 9 days to break up or redirect enough of that swarm to save Tellus. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers. I'm not even going to pretend to be in charge. We're going to coordinate as best we can, use what we've got, and figure it out as we go. That's not a plan, someone objected. No, Okonkwo agreed. It's organized chaos, which is better than standing around waiting for someone to give us permission. Let's get to work. The operation was messy. The humans used nuclear charges to fragment the largest asteroids. The Valorian plasma cannons vaporized mid-sized chunks. The Talgrim drilling teams changed the trajectory of asteroids too big to destroy. A civilian engineer figured out how to use gravity generators to nudge smaller pieces off course. 3 ships were damaged. 2 miners were injured. A human destroyer burned out its main drive and had to be towed back. But it worked. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But 9 days later, when the asteroid swarm reached Telos, 87% of it had been destroyed or diverted. The remaining fragments hit mostly uninhabited areas. Casualties numbered in the hundreds instead of billions. The Galactic Council finally arrived 3 days later. When the crisis was already over, Councillor Zaltier stood in the council chamber and looked at the faces around him. Some were relieved. Some were angry. Some were confused. All of them had learned the same lesson. "We need to discuss what happened," he began. "What happened?" The Nexus representative said bitterly, "Is that humans once again ignored all established protocols and dragged other species into their chaos." "What happened?" Lyra Vasquez corrected, "Is that humans moved while you debated. And because we moved, 20 billion people are alive." "But at what cost?" Representative Kess demanded. "You've undermined 2,000 years of carefully built procedures. You've shown everyone that they can simply ignore the council and act on their own authority. You've created a precedent that could lead to chaos." "Or," Zaltier said slowly, "they've shown us that our system has a critical flaw." The chamber went quiet. "We've built something elegant," Zaltier continued. "A system where everyone has a role, where responsibility is clearly defined, where nothing happens without authorization. But twice now, we've watched that system fail when rapid response was needed. Twice, humans have acted while we debated. And twice, they've been right." He stood, addressing the full council. "I propose we create something new. A protocol for when the system fails. When an emergency requires immediate action and the council is paralyzed by diffusion of responsibility, any member species can invoke what I'm calling the Terran Doctrine. They can act immediately, without authorization, with full legal protection." "That's madness," someone protested. "That's humanity," Saltier replied. "And perhaps that's exactly what we need." The debate that followed lasted weeks. Many opposed it. The idea of formalizing unauthorized action went against everything the council stood for. But in the end, they couldn't argue with results. Humans had saved Kepler-442b. Humans had saved Tellus. And both times, they'd done it by ignoring the rules and acting anyway. The Terran Doctrine passed by a narrow margin. It was the single biggest change to Galactic Council procedure in 2,000 years. Lyra Vasquez met with Zaltier after the vote. "You realize what you've done?" she asked. "You've essentially given everyone permission to act like humans. Terrifying, isn't it?" Zaltier's throat sacs pulsed with what Lyra had learned to recognize as dry humor. "Why did you push for this?" "Because you were right," he said simply. "We built a system where everyone waits for someone else to take responsibility, where the proper response to crisis is debate and committee. And while we perfected that system, we forgot the most important thing, which is that sometimes someone just needs to move. Even if they're wrong, even if they get punished. Because standing by and doing nothing while people die is worse than any mistake you could make trying to help." Lyra smiled. "That's very human of you." "I know," Saltier said. "Like I said, terrifying." The galaxy learned its lesson slowly. The Terran Doctrine wasn't invoked often, but when it was, it worked. Because humans had taught them something fundamental. In a universe full of bystanders, the first one to move can save everyone else. And humans, for better or worse, always move first.